Okay, now is that... Okay, now you just took a picture.
No, it's
No,
recording,
it's...
sweetie. We're going.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Hi. So we got more games here today, with family games, because evidently some people
Spending
have
a lot of family time right
children who play games with them. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Matt.
I'm Nancy.
There we go. So let's talk about family games. If we've got we've had literally like 4 or 5 people respond to this video, so thank you. And one of the questions that we get fairly frequently is, what are good games for families, for people with small children and such? So we're going to suggest some of our favorite family games. I'm going to start with a game which you've probably seen before. It's pretty common at Target and Walmart. I don't know what's at Walmart, but I do see it at Target fairly frequently. And it is by the artists who do the web comic, The Oatmeal. It is Exploding Kittens. Exploding Kittens is a fun, it's like a Uno, but much weirder and darker in that you're trying to get, not Uno, you're trying to stay in the game. You don't want to lose all of your cards. If you lose all of your cards, you're out of the game. And you play until people are eliminated. It moves fairly quickly. There is a family-friendly version here. There's a slightly darker version, and all of them have the same weird art, very silly, funny art, like, giant manatees and watermelon cats and things like that. Very surreal art. There's the family-friendly version. There is an adult version, which is a little naughtier. And then there's the expansion Imploding Kittens, which comes with this, the Cone of Shame. If you forget which direction you're going, you have to wear the Cone of Shame. And it has written inside, so you know which way it's going, which way the direction's going. And you have to wear this until somebody else messes up.
You can see how this might appeal to children.
Yeah, it's very, very silly. The art is fun. It's easy to learn. And along the same lines, Nancy wanted me to point out that the Oatmeal, they have a variety of different games, but they also have the game Bears versus Babies, in which there's an epic battle that we always think about, who would win in a fight between bears and babies. This can settle that. And it's a really weird furry box. Kids love this stuff. So that's my first recommendation for family games.
And Exploding Kittens actually is a very short, quick game, and we have also taken that out with us to places. Like I said, we said in one video, we take games wherever we go. So that's also one that you could take with you to play on a picnic or whatever. Okay, so my first family one is the Amazing Labyrinth. This is a fun one. I had it at my school when I was doing the game club. And your goal is to collect cards with different pictures on them and then get back to your home base before your opponents. This plays 4 people. Everybody is going after different goals because everybody has a different deck. But the thing about this game is you are building the board and manipulating the board as you play. So you start out and the board is empty. And then there are tiles that go on the board that fill up the empty spaces, and they get slid along up or down. So after or before your turn, you have to slide the maze and adjust the maze before the next person's turn. So you have to think about, what are you going to do? How are you going to manipulate it to create an open path for you? Because as you can see, as things get moved around, paths get blocked. And also, depending on how far ahead your opponent is, where you are in the game, you might also be thinking, how can you move the maze to block your opponent? So it's fun. It's very tactile. Very simple. So it's all just pictures and moving things. It's a spatial game. So people who have kind of good spatial sense do really well with it. But the kids really like this one. And it's really simple to learn and pick up.
I just want to show the box art on this. Something about this game. I used to read Games magazine when I was a kid in the 80s. And this game, I remembered reading about it, was featured in one of those magazines, and it stuck with me for years and years and years until I had a chance to buy this at a garage sale. and it's Ravensburger. They do a lot of really cool, fun games.
Yeah, this is an old, like one of the original boxes. This has been, like the packaging has been updated.
Yeah.
So you can still find this places.
Yep. Good call. All right, my next game. This one's a little bit, this one's going to seem a little strange. And it is strange. It's a very weird mechanic. It's not like anything we've ever played before, but this is a co-op. It is called Hanabi. Now, I remember the first time I played this, some friends at Geeksboro had played it at a convention, and they kind of made a mock-up of it before it was sold. But you can buy it now. It is a neat game, and it's co-op. We're all working together at a fireworks factory, and we are trying to put on the best fireworks display possible. And so it's kind of like playing solitaire in a group. Here's the catch. You have cards that are all different colors. They're all numbered 1 through 5. And you are trying to play in turns around the table, depending on how many people you have. I think it plays up to 4 or 5, maybe. But anyway, you take your cards and you will play them face down. You have to play them in numerical order from 1 to 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that order. Sounds very simple.
By color.
By color, yeah. You have to separate them. So the maximum points that any time you could ever get, since there's 5 different colors, is 25. Here's the catch. You notice how I'm holding the cards like this? This is how you hold them in the game. You don't have any idea what you're holding. And so on your turn, you may either pick a card to discard, and you have to say it. You say, I'm going to discard this one, or I'm going to play this one. And you play it. Or you can look at anybody else in the table and say, Nancy, this one, and this one, they're all 1s. Or this one and this one, those are green. And whoever gets that information has to remember it and believe and trust it. So this is a game about communication and trust. And
so you can see what everybody else has. You have no idea what you have.
Yeah. And so, and it's in the spirit of these games to not make a face when somebody goes, I'm going to play. You have to be stone-faced. Otherwise, you're kind of cheating. It's sort of the nature, the spirit of the game to play honestly like that. But this is a really cool game, and it puts you in these weird situations where you're like, huh, she just told me that. So I am just going to, I'm going to play. Yeah, I'm going to play. And a lot of times it works. Cool game.
And when it doesn't work, your teammates aren't happy with you.
No. Oh, there's also a finite amount of information. There are little chips that say, you start, I think, with maybe 8 of these chips. And every time you get give a piece of information out, you lose a chip, and you lose a chip. And the only way to get chips back is to discard cards. And once you've discarded it, it's out of the game. Game ends when either the deck runs out or you make 3 mistakes and everything explodes. So 25 points. It's a lot of fun. It's a really neat game.
Yes, and then it ranks you based on how many points you actually earned.
Yeah.
And how beautiful your fireworks display ended up being.
And how many fingers you have left.
Okay, so my next one is a cooperative game called Castle Panic. This is another one I had in my game club, played a lot with the kids at school. It is a game you are trying to defend your castle against the orcs and the trolls and the monsters that are coming out of your out of the forest. So it's, like I said, it's cooperative. So everybody takes their own turn, but you're talking about what you can do with the people you're playing with. You are trading cards. You're trying to plan who has what and who will be able to attack what monsters, depending on where they are on the board. So just fun game. And the cooperative games are always, the communication is always key. Someone being willing to kind of follow the group's agenda rather than their own agenda. But this is one that we've had a lot of fun with, especially with kids.
Yeah, I think we are short one piece. We played that at the Vanderveens, and I think one of their dogs ate a troll.
Yeah. So it's a little easier now.
Yeah, it's much easier. All right, my next game, not necessarily one of our favorites, but people love it, especially people with kids. It's got great colors. It's got a great theme. It's fun. You're fighting each other. It is King of Tokyo. Now,
it's not one of my favorites.
It's not one of her favorites. So King of Tokyo, as you would expect, is about kaiju, giant monsters ravaging Tokyo, the city of Tokyo. There's a sequel, King of New York, which I'm loaning to my friends at Hamptons to see how they like. It's a little more complicated. People generally think it's more fun, but if you have kids, this is fairly simple. They're giant. You pick your kaiju, and initially it doesn't matter. So we have the giant panda. We have well, it's not Godzilla because it's
copyright
IP. We have aliens and giant bunnies and King Kong knockoffs. And what you're doing is you're rolling dice, and you have these big clicky clacky dice, and
like Yahtzee.
Like Yahtzee, yeah. You get to roll up to 3 times, and then you decide with your rolls: do you attack your other opponents? Do you use them to buy cards to give you special powers? Do you use hearts to regain your strength for your kaiju? And each of you keeps track of your strength and your victory points on these wheels. When somebody gets to, I think, 20 victory points, they win. Or if their health drops to 0, they're out of the game. And so the way you win is you become the King of Tokyo. So kids love it. It's loud and
it's not a really deep strategy game.
No.
It relies a little too much on luck, which is why I don't like it, because it's all about the roll of the dice. And one person could get bumped out of the game pretty early on while the game is continuing. So there's some issues like that with it, but it is a fun game, and it's not complicated, so it would be easy for kids to learn. There is a lot of movement and the monsters fighting or attacking your opponents. So there are elements like that the kids like. Did you show and it has expansions.
Oh, it has lots of expansions.
I can add monsters in and do different things. So it is a kid favorite. It's just not one of my favorites.
It's one of those where you decide if you start in Tokyo as the King of Tokyo, then everybody else who's playing, when they attack you. And so you have to decide when it's time to bow down and give up the kingship to somebody else. And it's kind of a press your luck game. So that also doesn't have appeal for, some.
Not at all. Okay. So the next one is Sorrow. And this is one that we started playing years ago. And this is actually another that I had bought for the game club. It's beautiful, and it's fascinating the way it works, because what you're doing is everybody's working kind of together, but also against each other to create a path. And you have this board that's a grid. It's got a very beautiful dragon on it. And what you do is you are laying tiles down to make a path. And what I just find fascinating is that no matter what tile you pick, no matter where you put it, it is going to connect. The two paths will connect in some way. And then you have a game piece that when you extend the path, you move your piece along the path. And so your goal is to stay on the board. If your path takes you off the board, you lose. If your path is extended by a tile that another person puts down, you have to move your piece along the path. And so the winner will be whoever is on the board last. You cannot deliberately take yourself off the path. So if you would lay a piece, and if you have an option, you can't put a piece down that's going to move you off the board. But it's very strategic. It is more strategic, but it's all very visual. There is another version, Sorrow of the Seas. Has a
sea monster that moves around the board.
So again, it's very simple. So there's no reading. It's just the visual spatial mechanics of creating the path together.
And like Carcassonne, which we talked about in a previous video, when the game is done, you've played, you've had your fun, but then you have this really cool maze just laid out there, and it's very pretty. Lots of fun. Next game. This game, when I first read about it, I read all of these reviews that said it was wonderful, and then I read about how you play it. I'm like, that can't be that much fun. It really can't, because it sounds like a 70s game show, but it really is. It really is fun. Code names. You've probably seen this at Walmart or Target or on Amazon. There are, half a dozen different IPs for it. There's Simpsons, there's Harry Potter. You don't really need to know. I think probably with Harry Potter, you'd probably need to know them. There are visual ones for people who can't read or have trouble reading. This is a neat game. So you can play in teams. This one scales really well. When we talked about that earlier, where you could play anywhere from 4 to as many as can see the table. Okay. When you are, what you do is there are a stack of tan cards, and they're just general words like swing, march, mount, face, revolution, wake. So you make a grid, 25 by 25. 2 of the people playing are callers, and each of them can see this. Now this shows you, if I'm on the red team and Nancy's on the blue team, I want my partner to call all of the words that are on the red spots. Nancy wants all of her partner to call all of the teams on the blue spot. If you see up here, there's a black spot. If your partner or someone on your team picks that black word, the black one, that is the rogue agent, you lose, you're out of the game. And just like a 70s game show, the way you get your team to pick is you give a one-word clue. One word, or maybe the title of something.
A proper noun.
A proper noun. So, Count of Monte Cristo. As long as that word does not appear on the grid, it is fair game. And the other person is spotting you. So let's say toothbrush is on there, and I say teeth. So she'll point it out. My turn ends, okay? And then she gets to cover one of hers up and take her turn. Your team can talk amongst themselves.
You can trash talk the other team.
Oh my God, the trash talking is vicious in this game. But until one of their players touches a card with their finger, you can't say anything. You are stone faced. And if you are on the calling side, it absolutely kills you to hear how your team will talk themselves in the right direction and then out of it. Yeah. So you could say something like pet and
dog. But there's a giraffe over here, so maybe he meant giraffe as a pet. I mean,
remember that time we went to New York
thinking.
And Donnie and Liz had the 3 cats, and it's got to be New York. It's got to be not dog. It's New York. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun, and so 2 more things about this. I said it plays 4 or more, but Nancy brought.
You have to have a team to play. You have to have at least 4 people.
Or 3. You could play a cutthroat version.
Oh, because we've never done that. But there is a Codenames Duet it's a 2-player version of the same game where you're trying to get each other to guess the correct words in a certain amount of turns. So if it's only 2 of you, would be a good choice. Otherwise, Codenames, it really is. It's the one that we pull out when we have a group of people over. Yeah.
So one more good thing about Codenames, especially during this, if you want to reconnect with family, we set up a iPad on a tripod, and we had a Zoom call, and we played Codenames with 2 other couples who are in different places, and it worked. It actually worked.
Yeah, as long as they can see the grid of cards, and then there's somebody who can see the card that tells you which words that you're trying to go for.
Yeah.
And then we even figured out a way that somebody in the other house could be the caller, because we could send a picture of the card.
Actually, Codenames has an app which will, remember that red and blue grid? It assigns a number to each of them. So if you have that app, you can say, we're going to play 1152 now, and the other person, you're both looking at the same thing no matter where you are. There's also one last thing about this, because it's such a great game. It's perfect for pandemic, for isolation. There is a knockoff version called Code Words you can find on iOS, and that you can play up to 4 people at a time, or you can play with random strangers, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Codenames. Okay, so another light family game is Transamerica, and this is kind of like Ticket to Ride light. It's a railroad building game, but it's just faster. There aren't as many things as you can do on your turn. Basically, what happens is you're trying to connect cities on the map. I'm not going to try to unfold the whole map. You're trying to connect cities on the map you have a card that matches the color of a city in different regions. And if you're a stickler for geography, yeah, I don't want to look too closely at this map because where they have places does not match up with what I remember of the map. But you have 5 different colors, and you're trying to connect all of your tickets that you get at the beginning of the game first. But you are using other people's track. So you're sharing the track. So as you lay down a piece of track, as long as it is connecting to what somebody else is playing, there are these little, as long as it connects to what somebody else is playing, then you can now use that track to make your connections. So it's not as, it doesn't take as long. You're all kind of working together. There is like a short expansion that will kind of let you block players because it gives you specific color. And then on the bottom of the board, there's a train track. And what happens is you lose points if you don't connect all your cities. And whoever loses points and moves along the track and gets to the end first and falls off the track loses. And whoever stays and is on the track furthest back is the winner. So again, this is a little bit easier for the kids to pick up. Plays up to 5, which, for some of the games, actually it plays up to 6. So that's actually a pretty decent sized group, especially right now.
It was out of print for a while, but you can find it now. They've reprinted it, and you can find it on Amazon. All right. My last game is a very controversial game in this house. It is a game that has caused many fights.
No, not many, because we've only played it once.
Yeah. It is Magic Maze. And oh my gosh, look at this. It got Best Party Game and the Spiel des Jahres, which means it's a great game. So everybody should love this game, Magic Maze, right? Not everybody loves it. So the premise of this game, and this is a co-op game as well, and this plays an absurdly wild amount of, you can play this by yourself. I think you can play it up to 8 people at a time. The premise of this game is you are warriors. You're like a Dungeons and Dragons team, and you're escaping the dungeon with all of your loot. And just as you're about to walk out, you are magically transported into a mall that's about to open for the morning. I'm sorry, the premise makes me laugh. And so what you have to do is there's like a dwarf, a warrior, I think a wizard, and maybe a Valkyrie or something, or a thief, excuse me. They all have to get their treasure and escape the mall before security catches them. Sounds simple, right? Yeah, no. On your turn, you can move any of the plate pieces, and you can move them as far, like a rook piece in chess. Thank you. You can move them as far as you want in not any direction. You can only move them certain directions. You can only move them north. Nancy can move them east. Isaac can move them south, and Philip can move them west. And so you all have to work together to escape in a certain amount of time, and you have a timer here that's keeping track of it.
They're all wondering who Philip is.
Well, that's all right. They don't need to know. Everybody knows Philip. He's a local community theater god. So you have to do it in a certain amount of time. Okay, again, still easy. Philip, you move to the west. Nancy, you go. You can't speak. You cannot say a word.
But for all that, it is not a quiet game.
It is not a quiet game. No.
Because there's this little piece that you have.
Oh, this little piece.
And this is what I don't like about this game.
Oh, is this the piece you don't like?
So you can pick up this piece and to nudge someone that needs to make their move in a certain direction. They're not going to see this. But you can put this down in front of them, except that rarely does it happen that it's just placed gently. It's normally...
No. We don't say.
Most annoying thing.
It's a
most annoying thing. And so it's a timer. So you also have that stress of time. There's just so many things about this game I do not like.
And it's neat. All of the pieces line up, and there are places on the maze where you can go and flip the timer. Another really cool thing about this game is it actually has, a legacy. It has a series. It starts out simple, and you can play these extra adventures that make it more and more complicated, more and more interesting. And it does. It scales, and the reason it scales so well is if you're playing by yourself, you make a stack of these cards. If you're playing with two people, you go up, you go north and east, I go south and west. If you're playing with 8 people, everybody just gets one direction. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's stressful. It's a stressful.
It's
game.
very quiet and relaxing.
No, it's not.
All right, what do you got?
Not my favorite. Okay, so the last of our family games is Goose. And this is one that we have played a lot. I'm trying to look real quick to see how many it plays because I don't remember. And it plays a decent sized group, at least 5 or 6. And it's a card game.
It's Richard Garfield who did King of Tokyo.
Yeah, it's an ILO Games game. So there are numbers 1 through 14, and then there are some special cards like a wild card. There are yellow cards that do special things, red cards that do special things. It's basically you're in the graveyard and you're encountering ghosts in the graveyard. And you have a hand of cards. Your goal is to play your last card. But for a lot of reasons, you might have to pick up the whole stack of cards. You might be able to discard cards. It can go on and on and on. It will, as people get out, there might be 2 players who the game is just extending and extending. So it does have that little bit of a difficulty because that can get problematic when you have people just sitting. But it is one that we have played when our son was more cooperative. It's one we played with him a lot. He did like it. It's not real high strategy. You're just playing cards based on numbers. You just have to know your numbers and be able to do numbers in sequence. So it's a game that younger kids can play. And so it's light and fun, and like I said, it can accommodate a few more than just 2 or 3, 4 people.
I think the real draw for me is the art in this game. It's like Haunted Mansion. Cool. It's kind of creepy, but not. And then like the one guy, the most brave person, even though it's the lowest ranked, he can be played on anything. And then the 11 card takes all the cards out. Yeah.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, very Tim Burton-esque art. It's a fun game. And when I was at a game store in Gainesville, Florida, right when we were getting into games, and I said, I want to get a game for my young son for Christmas. And this was what they recommended. And he actually really did like it a lot.
So those are our choices for family games.
Yep.
If you have any questions about any of them, let us know. We'd be glad to help you learn, play with you eventually when we can do this in person. Anything else?
Yeah, wash your hands.
Yeah, stay home.